Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the first episode of Series 10, the pilot, written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Lawrence Goth. This story is set as essentially a new beginning for Doctor Who, a very strange and odd creative decision. Essentially, Stephen Moffat was acting as if this was a great place to kick into the series to start, with new characters, new motifs, new areas of and new ways of exploring the story. Just new, with the exception, of course, of the Doctor and his current companion, Nardole. And that just feels really strange because this would be the last season featuring Stephen Moffat and Peter Capaldi, who announced prior that he would be leaving the show in the Christmas special of that year. 2017. This story also introduces Pearl Mackie as Bill Potts. They did show a little clip revealing who the new companion was going to be, and then this is something we need to also talk about for the episode. For a lot of people, I have distinct memories of this. I don't know if it's this is a personal thing or if it's a general consensus. But I was one of, I believe, many people, at least in my group of friends, it was a common opinion that we just weren't excited for Series 10. The Stephen Moffat era was showing its cracks. There was a lot of repeating ideas, and this story does have ideas which Stephen Moffat has tackled with before. But as well as we don't find his scripts, with the exception of a handful of episodes, not being that strong, with Doctor Who being gone for an entire year with only 2 specials in between this and Series 9. As well as the advertisement just didn't excite us. The little clip of showing Bill Potts, Pearl Mackie's introduction, was essentially an extended scene from this episode itself, and clearly at least it appeared anyway, that what they were trying to do is essentially recreate the appeal of Donna Noble, played by Catherine Tate. Pearl Mackie and Catherine Tate both have a very humorous side to their companions, a very down to earth, but also like cracking jokes and making things relatable, if you get what I mean. So it felt like it was trying to be like Donna Noble, as well as the trailers and just the way the show was starting to look felt more child friendly, shall we say, a bit more CBBC than BBC, if that makes any sense. So I think when we were going into this, into the story, we had pretty low expectations. We were going into this thinking the idea of the episode that we had a rough idea about throughout the episode is we weren't that keen on it. We'll probably watch it and at least have a laugh. If it's bad, hopefully it's good, but if it's bad, we'll just try and laugh at it. So I have distinct memories of me and my mates basically going over one of our mates' house to watch it, and just basically we were getting ready to rip the story apart. And then we actually watched the episode, and it took us, or at least at me anyway, it took me completely by surprise, as this story is a great, absolutely great introduction to Bill Potts, and Pearl Mackie just absolutely owns this role. With the first opening act, we basically learn of a new status quo. There's a great shot. It's it takes a while, but it's set still, of a university where we see Bill getting introduced. She sees Nardole walks through as his robotics is malfunctioning, and a piece of his materials are coming down, and he tries to hide it from Bill, who's obviously an Earth, a human. So that's kind of part of weird. And she sits there, and you got the funny interaction with her and the Doctor, and the opening essentially has it's basically a job interview where the Doctor we learn, has essentially been a lecturer at the St. Luke University in Bristol. And he's noticed that though a lot of people do come to his classes, seemingly he doesn't teach any particular subject, but rather he just teaches everything. And he notices that Bill comes to his lectures at some times, and he gets this like, why are you interested in coming to my classes? More specifically, everybody else, when they find something they don't understand, they frown, and they're like almost crossed with the fact that they don't know it. But not you, Bill. You smile. You are quirky. And I like how like the doctor tries to get these answers out, and she goes on this quite like rant about how she went on a date with this girl, but because she doesn't actually a student there. She actually works at the canteen. She's the chip lady, and she been given this woman that she fancies a lot of chips, and then she basically fattened her up, and she's like, actually, I just realised that had nothing to do with what I was talking about, but I was hoping it would lead somewhere. She like couldn't really think of an answer, and it's like, okay, I do understand that the story is basically a job interview for the companion. The story isn't really focused on the villains per se, which we will get into later on in the episode. The story is mainly focused on one job and one job alone: getting the audience introduced to the new companion. And the story exceeds so well. She's a very simple character. She has nothing. She's just a bundle of joy to hang around with, and you see, she's just a woman who works at a chip shop. She's not this special, the impossible girl. She's not the girl with a crack in her room and there's this mystery around her. She's not the most perfect woman in the world like Rose. She's just like Martha, like Donna. She's just an average, everyday woman who just has this interest of the weird, or at least the unexpected. And the doctor sees this, and he actually gives her like one-to-one classes, and for free as well. He just likes joining her company, and it's just such a simple concept, and it's a concept which doesn't rely really on story, despite there is obviously a story in this, but the story isn't really the main focus. And that could actually be one of the big issues with this story, is that the story isn't that, I wouldn't say it is engaging, but the story is it's a short episode, it's a one-parter, but it tries its best to try and get a lot of breathing moments, which means that the narrative itself isn't exactly tight fit. There's a lot of scenes where, in the first half anyway, it's just really Bill and the doctor just getting to know each other. I do really love the doctor's office. I absolutely love he's got a picture of River Song and a picture of Susan as to remind him. Though there is that really weird shot where Bill is saying, it's like, who am I? And the doctor then looks at Susan, seemingly implying that Bill might be Susan. But yeah, that hopefully, I was so glad that turned out not to be the case, and I was just imagining that, or should I say. But that is leading to an interesting debate where she's talking about her mother who passed away when she was very little, and that, she doesn't have a really good memory of her, but she's okay with that. It's this woman who's basically a stranger to her. She doesn't even have any photos to really know her, because this woman is a really shy, and she wasn't a very photogenic person. And the doctor looks at the pictures as she asks, like, what does pictures really would have helped anyway? And then later on, when she goes back to her apartment with her foster mother finds a box full of photographs of her mother, and you just see her just welling up with tears as she's just looking at the photos, and it's a really beautiful scene. But it ends with her noticing the photo of the Doctor in the background of one of the photos. Peter Capaldi here, I absolutely love here. The idea of him being a lecturer and this kind of this teacher figure, this kind of master to this apprentice figure is something that's very reminiscent of Classic Who, and it's something which I think not only really works, and it's something which I don't really don't understand why they just kind of stopped doing these kind of companion doctor relationships. But I think for Capaldi, it just absolutely works. As you can imagine, like I said, the narrative itself isn't that engaging, as I say. We do learn of another character, Heather, played by Stephanie Hyam. Hyam. I don't know how to pronounce that. And Bill takes a liking to her, and they kind of get into this kind of strange relationship. She does notice there's this strange pattern in her eye. Originally, the story was... Oh, I forgot to mention the title as well. The story is called The Pilot, which, for those of you who don't know, is a reference to a TV term meaning basically the first episode, or at least a pitch for what the series is going to be like in usual television terminology. And it's really strange how this episode calls itself The Pilot. Originally, it was going to be called The Star in Her Eye. But anyway, Heather... she's this very shy, she's this very quiet person, and she's kind of freaked out that she's noticed this puddle and something strange is wrong with the image. She noticed it straight away, but Bill kind of gets this strange feeling, and she has a few meetings with her. Again, the story allows its time for breathing, so we, despite this episode being really short, we do kind of feel the relationship between Bill and Heather. And for those of you who are massive Doctor Who fans like myself, yes, Bill, like in William, and Heather could have been a reference to William Hartnell, the actor who played the first Doctor, whose wife was also Heather Hartnell. However, Stephen Moffat has confirmed it was a complete and utter coincidence. But it's a really cool coincidence, to be fair. And she gets basically taken away by this puddle, and this is where the action really gets into the place where the Doctor basically starts investigating this puddle. There's also something underneath St. Luke's University, and the Doctor. But we basically learn throughout the episode that the Doctor has basically given up his adventures somewhat to protect this vault underneath St. Luke's University, and Bill Potts kind of learns that, and as well, Nardole is really there to try and keep him on track, as well as, kind of giving him company. Basically, Nardole is the assistant in every term. The Doctor basically just goes up to Nardole and asks him to do a particular task, and Nardole does it. But Matt Lucas, despite him having very little to work with here and having very little, there's not much of a character here in this episode. He has some really great humorous moments in the episode. But anyway, this leads into a action scene where the Doctor and Nardole and Bill basically go in the TARDIS. I absolutely love Bill's introduction to the TARDIS. I love how they go in the box and she thinks it's still it's kind of claustrophobic until the Doctor walks away, and she turns around and the lights all come on. Absolutely gorgeous. Lawrence's directing. My God, this story has so many moments. When I watched it for this marathon series, I'm more focused on the directing, the editing, the way the camera is positioned. Lawrence's directing here is absolutely awe-inspiring. It's something which I don't think you would notice because it's so casually done. This story clearly doesn't have that big a budget compared to most episodes in the past series. You can kind of feel the budget was cut for this run of Doctor Who, and however, it makes up by this really cool action sequence where the Doctor basically travels. He travels to from the university top, his office, to the basement, then to Sydney, Australia, and then to an alien planet, and only then to end up in basically one of the most dangerous places in the universe. Which, yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that. But this action scene is really great. It's very well shot, very well directed. There's so many great moments, so many great scenes in here. But let's talk about the most strangest, bizarre, the final act of this story. I forgot to mention Heather is being taken by this puddle. I remember hating the idea of the puddle. It's like really going to make a Doctor Who villain out of a actual puddle. But the more I think about it, the more I watch this episode, I actually really like it. It gives such a casual, like, it's a puddle, you won't even think about it, and then all of a sudden it's trying to kill you. It was very reminiscent of the Autons, Doctor Who villains from the 3rd and 9th Doctors era, and the 11th Doctor as well, sort of. And that's just really, I don't know, it's just really cool, I find. Or at least the story does it in a way which, you know, you get intrigued at like what's happening, and then when action kicks in, it's also explained one scene. It's not actually a puddle. It's like a part of an alien craft that was actually left on Earth, abandoned, and it's trying to find a new pilot. And it attaches itself to Heather, who's now chasing Bill throughout time and space, which leads the Doctor to decide to go to the most dangerous place he could ever think of. He decides to take Bill Potts to a Dalek war zone. And, okay, fair enough. You know, that is pretty cool. And we do get a cameo of the Daleks, which means that they're not we don't have another Dalek story in the series, which I do kind of like, because, you know, there's that whole, the Daleks have to appear in one season. I don't know if that's true, but they're in here. It does mean that the Daleks feel kind of weak here, because they're literally like a cameo appearance. They don't get shot, and the Doctor basically treats them as a plot convenience, as just a means to an end, which really lowers you can clearly tell that Stephen Moffat just isn't a fan of the Daleks. But who they're fighting in this story? I know I'm making such a big deal at such a small little detail. They literally are in the story for like a nanosecond. But the Pacific War that the Doctor has taken Bill is the war between the Daleks and the Mavelians from Destiny of the Daleks. The 12th Doctor took Bill to Destiny of the Daleks. It's such a weird, such an odd reference to the classic era of the show. And especially how, like, throughout the episode, there isn't that much classic references in a way which would distract the audience. I feel like this one does kind of. In a way, but like the story just feels like a breath of fresh air, and then you get a reference to the Mavellans. It just feels really odd. As well as Mavellans are all characters specifically known for looking incredibly cheap, and they got a cameo here. It's really, really, really strange. But this all culminates into a scene where we essentially learn that Heather doesn't want to kill Bill. It takes the form of a Dalek. It has a gun. It could easily kill the Doctor, Nardole, and Bill if it wanted to, if Heather wanted to, but refuses. It does not. And we essentially learn that Heather was the greatest pilot for the alien puddle water thing. Also, you get, I forgot to mention, there is that whole characters repeating element, which has been done in many Doctor Who stories prior, mainly in most Stephen Moffat episodes, as well as the Fantastic Midnight, as well as a alien water entity which seems to possess people, very reminiscent of the 10th Doctor adventures, The Water of Mars. So yeah, it's again that Stephen Moffat quirk of repeating ideas. And the Doctor... Bill actually figures this out. Bill is actually the one who works it out. and it's up to the doctor. The doctor basically tells her, "You've got to let her know that you've got to let her go." Bill was the only thing that's keeping Heather in this dimension, in this reality. So you've got to let her know that I don't want to travel with you, and Heather to go traveling on her own. And there's this great moment where they start touching hands, and both Doctor and Nada are like, "Don't do it. The things they're showing you, it's not real. It's trying to get you to be persuaded to go with it." But it's clear that it's just Heather trying to show Bill the universe that she can see and how she's going to live. Leaves Bill go. And that basically ends the story as the Doctor goes back to the university. He's about to race Bill's mind, and Bill refuses. And the Doctor is remembering of a time when somebody erased his mind. You also hear Clara's theme, so it's a reference to Hellbent. The less said about that story, the better. But anyway, and essentially, the Doctor then hires Bill to be his new companion through time and space. And that is the pilot. Overall, this story does have its cracks. The story, the main thick narrative of it, isn't that engaging, though the story does leave a lot of great time for breathing moments for characters to really figure out what's going on. And the mystery of the narrative is really interesting, mainly because our characters that we are following are not only interesting, but they are engaged in this narrative. It's just the narrative itself isn't that particularly strong, as well as many scenes focusing more on character development than plot. However, the character stuff that we do get here, mainly revolving around Bill, is really interesting, and the story does its job at introducing you to as Bill. And with that out of the way, we say hello to Bill, the newest companion, and Pearl Mackie, who I just adore. I just absolutely adore Pearl Mackie. And that's the pilot. Great story, highly recommended from me. So, join me next time where we go back to the Coal Hill School group as something with Sophie's heart, as the connection between the Shadow King and her, something's happening between them two. So join me next time for the co-owner of a lonely heart. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.